Good evening, folks, and welcome to the Pro Wrestling Chat. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we are discussing some of the big WWE releases we heard about this week, and how I feel some of them could benefit by working with TNA Wrestling, and obviously how TNA could benefit from their talent, of course. And so some of the names involved, probably the biggest one is Braun Strowman. Big, huge 300-something pounder. He's like, I don't know, 6'11" or something like that. Guy's a monster, and that's what they used to call him, the monster among men. He was part of the Wyatt family with Bray Wyatt in WWE. And then he ended up breaking off with that faction, and he ended up feuding with Bray Wyatt for the Universal Championship. And, yeah, he did end up winning the Universal Championship as well, so at one time he was a pretty big deal in WWE, but once he kind of became a babyface and went off on his own, he kind of ran out of steam after a while, and he ended up getting released by WWE, and this was back in 2022, I think, and, he was gone for, like, almost a year or so. He worked with EC3's Federation there, Control Your Narrative, I think it was called, and he showed up in Ring of Honor briefly, and then he ended up back in WWE, and now he's gone again. It's like, wow, they fired him twice. That's kind of rough. His second run in WWE was definitely pretty lackluster, other than when he did feud recently with Jacob Fatu. That was a pretty cool one. And other than that, he never seemed to be able to get off the ground for a while, So I'm not all that surprised that they got rid of him. But I do think he has a lot to offer. I mean, just look at the guy. He is a monster. I mean, you could really do something with him, He should be one of the most dominant guys in wrestling. Just look at the size of him, And I think he could really be used in a great way, especially if he's a heel, a dangerous, dominant heel, I think he could be great. But yeah, not just being one of the cronies or part of a faction. I think he could just be a devastating, bad guy, And I think that would work great in TNA. TNA really doesn't have too many big guys. Really, the only big guy they have is Moose. So I could see him feuding with Moose. That would be great, Or even make him part of, the system or something, I think he could be great. And the next big name was Dakota Kai. That was probably the one that people were most shocked at, because she was part of the Damage Control, a huge faction with Bayley and Io Sky in the WWE, and they were a big deal, They ran roughshod over the main roster, Of course, she came from NXT, and did great there, but when she called up to the main roster, she did quite well, but injuries had plagued her, and, Damage Control kind of fizzled out after a while, and unfortunately she got put on the shelf, and then and people were speculating, well, why hasn't she been on TV for months, and it turned out she wasn't injured or anything, it's just they haven't used her, and now they release her. So it's like, wow, it's pretty rough, but I think she could definitely do great work with TNA especially. So TNA right now, the Knockouts division is in pretty rough shape. It's just starting to get a little bit better because they've added a couple new Knockouts to the roster. They just added Indy Hartwell, which will be great, and Maggie Lee, and Lei Ying Lee, who used to be in WWE. So I think they could greatly benefit from Dakota Kai big time. I mean, I think she could be a big star in TNA, and I think the Knockouts division can absolutely use her. I think she's probably going to go to AEW, because they're going to be the ones that are going to offer a lot of money, but I think she would be a big star in TNA, whereas AEW should just probably be another talent in AEW. The roster is so bloated, you know. But don't get me wrong, AEW has a great women's roster, so I don't know. I have a feeling that she might end up in AEW, but I would certainly love to see her in TNA. And then you have Jakara Jackson, who was part of the tag team with Lash Legend, and they have been in TNA recently, feuding with the Elegance brand, Ash and Heather by Elegance, for the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championships. They were just at Rebellion this past month in April, and they had a huge four-way match with Jakara and Lash Legend were one of the teams. So yeah, they've already been featured as part of the working agreement with NXT and TNA, you know, and it's been great. And I think that has helped the Knockouts division greatly, and it'll be a no-brainer to see her become an actual part of the roster. So I just wish she's already been on the show a few times, you know. I think that's a no-brainer, and I think she could definitely be a star. She's got a lot of talent, you know, young, very talented, very physical. And Shayna Baszler, of course, who's with WWE for a long time, you know. She came from the MMA world, you know, and she worked with the UFC for a little while, and she was one of the people that trained Ronda Rousey as well when she came to WWE. You know, she helped train Ronda Rousey, you know, in the pro wrestling style of things. And, you know, she had that real badass kind of MMA look, and, you know, she was a real tough girl, you know. But she never quite got the exposure she deserved. I think they never quite found out what to really do with her for some reason. I don't know why, but at first she was very dominant in NXT, and she came over to the main roster and was very dominant when she first came in, but for some reason they never gave her the ball. They never ran with it, you know. They just kind of kept knocking her down a notch and knocking her down a notch, and next thing you know, they're sending her off to NWA and GCW and all this stuff. Like, giving her nothing to do, really. So, they ended up releasing her after a long time. But, yeah, I could definitely see her in TNA. I have a feeling she'd benefit more from, like, GCW or NWA kind of thing. Because, you know, we already have Masha Slamovich, kind of fits that mold, the tough girl, the badass, you know. Unless you had her with, working with Masha Slamovich. That I could see. I could see her maybe being a tag team with Masha Slamovich, or just, you know, having a big feud with her, you know. I could absolutely see that, you know. But I feel like she'd be better off in, like, GCW, where they're really, with the really hardcore wrestling stuff, you know. She would fit in there big time. And Cora Jade, as you see in the background here, who was also part of the TNA and NXT crossover, and she was on TNA several times. She had feuded with Masha Slamovich, the TNA World Champion, and they had a big match for the championship, and that was great too. And I think, once again, she'd be a no-brainer, as she's already been in TNA several times, and I could easily see her fitting right in. She's got a great look, she's beautiful, very talented, very charismatic. I think she would be a great addition to the Knockouts division, you know. And Gigi Dolan as well, who, yeah, as I said before, was part of that big four-way match at Rebellion for the TNA Tag Team Championship of the Knockouts. So she's been featured several times. Her tag team with Tatum Paxley. And it's unfortunate that, you know, they released Gigi Dolan, but they kept Tatum Paxley. It's like, wow, what's up with that? Because I would have loved to see Tatum Paxley in TNA as well. But yeah, I think all these girls, TNA should desperately get all of them. And Braun Strowman too, I think would be a great asset. I want to see TNA make a big play to get all these stars, but especially the women, because the Knockouts division needs them desperately. I mean, working with NXT is great, but they need their own stars, you know? And I think these women would be perfect way to kind of beef up the women's division and get it back to prominence, back to the way it used to be, where it was the most respected division in women's wrestling. And it hasn't been that in quite a while, you know? I'd say the last time people might have said that was a couple of years ago when they had a Trinity and Jordan Grace and Mickie James and all them, you know? But yeah, I kind of fell pretty hard after that, after they all left, you know. And no more Deonna Purrazzo, no more. Yeah, it's pretty rough, man. Rough shape, so we need to get it back to prominence and back to being the most respected women's division in professional wrestling. So, yes, absolutely want Dakota Kai, although I think she's probably going to go AEW. But Jakara Jackson, Cora Jade, and Gigi Dolan, I think, are shoo-ins to come to TNA. Absolutely. I think they will. I think TNA will absolutely make a play for them. They'll make a play for Dakota Kai too, but I think she's more likely to go to AEW, honestly. Because she's going to probably go where the money is. But Shayna Baszler, I'm not so sure. I would love to see her come in. I think she'd do great work with working with Masha Slamovich especially, but I have a feeling she's going to go like GCW or NWA or something like that. I think she would fit in a little bit better in a federation like GCW. Alright guys, that's it. Those are my thoughts on the big WWE releases this week and how I feel they could fit in and how I feel TNA could greatly benefit by hiring these great young talents. And thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in the Pro Wrestling Chat. Tune in and lock up.